Maybe when you get a bit
I
older.
forgot that I did this. Oh my god. So detailed. So nice. Main discussion topic. Should the basics of fighting games be more definitive in built-in tutorials? Or does the game's tutorial offer enough information about the game for players to become
Which game are we
competitive
talking
players?
about?
Fighting games.
No, I mean like specifically
No.
because Street Fighter 5 doesn't have a tutorial. It has a
No,
tutorial
okay.
system.
This topic is thrown out, but then we can talk about for each game.
Ah, okay. Well, I mean, I need you to define basics because my idea of basics has changed since Street Fighter 4.
wait. Before
Now
you
listen, because in Street Fighter 4, basics to me was like light attacks, medium attacks, and heavy attacks.
I like
now, when
progressive
beginners
order.
start, it's like option selects, jump back tech, and like the
Well,
basics has very much changed.
That's the realization,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this isn't actually asking the whole question.
Yeah.
So this is option. This is what's I don't know what that is in English. You gotta pick one or two. It's that kind
multiple
of
choice.
Is that how
Or
it's?
it's like an ultimatum, right? Where you have to pick one or the other.
Yeah. So it's a debate where
24th win from player one.
the attendees vote. I like one or I like option two.
Oh, so people
and
have
then
to
they
put
would
forward
debate
an
from that.
argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the argument. So should the I'll say this again.
All right. So part one is
So option number one is should the basics of fighting games, and I guess we can also talk about what the basics are, be more definitive in built-in tutorials. Like I guess as complex as option select, shimmies.
so like Guilty Gear's tutorial system.
Yeah.
Okay. Or
Or does the game's tutorial right now offer enough information already about the games for players to become competitive players? So, Street Fighter, for example, if you learn everything that the game offers that's within the game and neglect all the outside sources like text and all that stuff or community-based educational videos. In Street Fighter 5's case, it'll definitely not apply because if you learn all the basics, all the tutorials in Street Fighter 5, it's just not enough for you to become a...
so that's definitively not enough.
Not enough.
That's a shut case.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So does Street Fighter 5 right now, does it need more?
let's narrow
Or do
the
we leave
scope.
it to the community?
Let's narrow the whole scope of this entire topic down
Sure.
to Street Fighter 5.
Okay, that's, I
Alright,
guess
that
that's
makes
more
it
simple.
so much
yeah.
easier.
And then for other games, we'll let the other guys like...
So if I were to argue, does Street Fighter 5 teach you the basics of fighting games to be definitive? To be more. Should it be more definitive?
right, then it
I
is
don't
now.
think it needs to be
Okay.
because the game teaches you every mechanic,
Yep, okay.
right? There's no hidden mechanics that it doesn't mention,
Yep, that's true. That's very true.
and it shows you in more ways than one how to use all the things. So in terms of tutorials, so like the Ken and Ryu thing at the start of the game, when you first open it, and also the trial system, and some of the features in training mode, right?
Right.
Which are all learning tools. I think it shows you enough to understand the game fully. There's no hidden parts behind it.
That's definitely
But
true.
that's why you've I feel like the question is slightly worded incorrectly because the basics of fighting games and the information required to become a competitive player, that those two, if you imagine, there is no crossover between those.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So you're talking
Also,
about
I
two
guess-
subsets of skills that do not intersect.
And as well as like, how do you draw the line between mechanics and tech, right? So
mechanics are definitely outlined inside the game.
yep,
So
to teach
let's
you what's
say-
available
let's
in
say
the game.
Mechanics are things that are V reversal,
Yeah.
V trigger.
They've been
critical art,
defined already. Yes.
EX.
Mhm.
They have names. They have defined
what
names
they
inside
are.
of the game.
Yes.
Right. Whereas
That's
things
not
like
a-
tech,
Yep.
even like the quick back roll off the ground.
Ah, yes.
is,
recovery.
yep, the
yeah, normal
mechanics.
recovery, back
Yeah, yeah.
recovery, so and so. Yes.
But tech would be things like off the forward throw, if you do forward dash medium punch, and that's a meaty, that's tech, right? Because that's a sequence of mechanics being used in a specific order
Yep.
to maintain an advantage.
Yep.
So that's tech. So I guess you
strategy
could say
within the game.
tech is the application of mechanics.
Sure. Ah, okay. That's a good way to put it. So all the strategies, all the planning, all the number crunching is
it's an application
mixture
of
and
mechanics.
application of
Yeah,
mechanics.
so you can
that's
even
in the
go
game.
even further and say that, I mean, unnamed mechanics. I said earlier that mechanics all are named within inside the game.
I love
frame
that.
data is a mechanic that is not named inside the game.
Yes.
Because it does not specifically mention frame data, but it definitely
It exists.
It's the stitching for the entire game, right?
So
Without
yeah,
frame
also,
data, the game doesn't function.
right. It's not just about the numbers.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I mean that also kind of branches into my other curiosity is that there are things where it even now, like in the modern fighting games, is where some of the terminology isn't really say defined or maybe it doesn't really exist unless you actually describe the whole situation. Those terminologies can sometimes be misunderstood or even understood in a different
So
definition.
you're talking about things that have multiple meanings, though, right? Or
It
be
can
lost in
have multiple
translation.
meanings or lost in translation. There you go. So, like for example, I guess it exists, but for me, I'm familiar with the English terminology for this. We all know hit confirms.
Yeah.
Is where you something like player
that?
would practice where from a single hit and you react to your own hit, whether it's a visual cue or an audio cue.
In some way, you confirm what happened and then you follow up.
Follow up, and usually it's become a more amazing feat if the hit confirm links into something that's rarely linked into. So things like one hit confirm into a super,
Yeah.
or something that of a big damage that turns around the game advantage. But what is the term where you kind of commit to it before the hit confirm? Yeah.
Where you have like an inkling where it's it's going to hit and you do it.
Yeah.
It's just a read. There's no way it's not a read
So,
because you're expecting something to happen that is not that has no visual or
You're
audio.
predicting it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
It's and predictions are called reads in
so
fighting games.
reads also, I guess, falls
So
under
your
that
idea of like
category.
a hard and a soft read, right? What's the difference?
I see.
What do you think?
I get
What do you think the difference between a hard and a soft read is?
I guess hard read is where you committed all the way, regardless of the.
See, I don't agree. A hard read is something where you've committed to an option, and your reasoning is this is going to happen, but your reasoning has no prior information to lead into it. It's just a straight guess, right? If I held up 3 cards,
So hard read
if I held up
equals
5
guess?
cards,
Right.
and you said this one's a 4, and you pointed to the card, and you were right, that's a hard read.
Okay.
But if I showed you, like,
Wait, does it matter if you got it right or wrong?
a soft read would be if I were to flip over cards, the deck is sequential, and I showed you a 1, a 2, a 3, and you
okay.
said the next one's a 4, that's a soft read because you have information to help you make
predefined
that, make that
information
judgment.
before you make the decision.
So in fighting game fighting game terms, it's like every time you knock them down,
Sure.
you do dash up like, and you do like frame trap, and it hits them.
Yep.
And on the 4th time, you're like, I'm just going to swing for the fences on this one because it's guaranteed, right? This guy's been pushing buttons every time.
On wake up.
Yeah. And so you wind up on him and you hit him and you just kill him. And that is a read that you made based on the fact that he just won't stop pushing buttons. That is my understanding of a soft and a hard read.
Okay. I mean, that's really good. I love it how you described it that way. That's very, very clear for me.
Yeah.
Although, see, these are the things. I'm pretty sure, like me, because I'm a very slow learner, sadly. I'm a slow learner, and as well as more of a visual thinker. So like I'm bad at like
This is the
logically
top player 1.
spreading down the definitions to explain to somebody.
Oh, right.
It's
Explaining
for
it to
me,
someone else.
For me, it's like I'm kind of the guy where I'll point to it and say this is what I mean, kind of person, right? So therefore, like, yes, when it came down to like a technological term, I'm kind of a slow learner in that aspect. So
It comes with practice.
yeah, that too, and experience. So whenever there was a topic of reads, I only put it down to a simple definition of reads mean guess.
More or less.
I mean, it is, right? I'm not
in,
wrong.
In all cases, they're all some kind of guess, whether it be educated or not.
Yeah, but I mean, I appreciate that you like put down like dot points and bullet points of like what the hard
There are
read is.
different kinds of guesses, right? There's a wild guess, which is what you would call a hard read, and there's educated guesses, which is what I call a soft,
Soft read, yes.
Yeah.
Because some of the information was already available.
Yeah, you already had an idea that it was going to happen.
So in Street Fighter, it's like, I guess, you would test out some of the tech that you
A lot of your
practice.
soft reads will come down to knowing how that player plays.
Yeah,
So
and the
if
patterns.
you play me a lot over the course of a year, you'd be like, oh, he usually jumps here. And if I jump, it's gathered knowledge that you've applied to make a soft read.
So, right. So, I guess anti-air is part of a soft read? Because
Yeah.
you know that this person
I mean,
might
it
jump at
depends.
this time.
But
then it's a mixture of reactions.
It's hard to call something a read. I feel like a read is something where you're committed in a way that is punishable in a fighting game, right?
Yes.
So you have to commit a resource, whether it be your own life because you've whiffed a dragon punch,
Okay.
or meter because you've used an EX move to do so.
Right.
So it's like a gamble in a sense where you have to put up an ante. You know? Because otherwise, I mean.
So yeah.
Otherwise, it just feels like it's not really that much of a read. It's not
So
that
just like
impressive.
that, games don't teach you reads.
Not really.
Back to the topic, right?
I mean,
Games don't teach you reads, but are reads?
in a sense, they kind of do. Because some game tutorials show you how to throw tech.
Ah, yes. And tick throws.
Yeah.
Injustice has the actual term tick throws in the game.
Yeah.
So they're using it as an official
Do
gaming
you think
terminology.
do you think a successful throw tech is a read? On the defense?
Ooh, good question. Usually throw teching, that it's not an option select, like crouch tech, is... But is it a hard read or a soft read? I guess it's a soft read.
I mean, it covers all bases. I think it's a hard read because you're not guaranteed,
Yes.
and there is no prior information that you're going to be thrown because there's no. I mean, unless you knew, right?
Which is impossible.
But it is a way of risk mitigation.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Which
well,
comes-
it's just one of a defensive option.
Option selects in that sense are insurance policies.
Yeah.
In a sense where like you can cover in a defensive sense multiple bad situations.
But say, for example, you'll have the same result. Let's say either you option selected and you read a throw tech. Because of that ground where some scenarios can actually even overcome those option selects, the two of the options that you've done, but you got the same outcome of you did not throw tech and get crush counted, right? But in that sense, or the progress though, which one is more of a defined read than the other? The option select throw break or the timing throw break?
I mean, what's to say that they're not both?
I mean, no, they definitely fall under the category of they're both reads. It's just that I guess option selects cover multiple options.
Yeah.
But in the end, the results were saying, well, they got baited by a
Alright,
shimmy or something.
So let's stop for a second and look at the idea of option selects covering multiple options.
Okay.
You've played roulette.
Yes.
You know how in roulette you can bet on a number, a color, and other regions.
Yeah.
So you can bet on black. You can bet on red. You can bet on 1 to 50.
Something like that.
And
a lot
you
of
can-
numbers.
And you can also bet on 1 to 15, the region.
Like that area.
And 15
That
to...
own area.
Sorry, it's like 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30 kind of thing.
By the way, I won $300 on roulette on Evo.
Really?
Yes.
Neat.
Back to topic.
So the way that relates, like your option selects, is that you're covering multiple options, because if the ball lands in 5 and you bet on, say 5 is black, I'm not really sure.
Raging Demon fail. Okay.
Or if you bet on black and 1 to 10 and 5, you've got 3 successes, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of like how option selects work, because if you didn't bet on 5, you still win, because it still triggers because you bet on 1 to 10 and black.
Yep.
You still win if you just bet on black because 5 is black.
Right. Okay.
So
Covering
you just
multiple
need
options.
one of those success states to occur for it to be successful, right? Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah. But then, okay, but this person is really bad at picking those option selects and came down with the outcome of where still lost the money.
Well,
But then Did he?
That's gambling.
So then is Street Fighter 5 gambling?
Well, I mean, on the defense, there's not a lot of mechanics that help the player. There's B reversal, and
Which can be baited.
yeah.
Similar to how burst
They've
can be
taken
baited.
away the jump back throw tech option select, right?
Yeah.
So that's out.
So the
There's-
game's direction is definitely trying to make you guess more,
Yeah. It's commit to a read rather than an option select.
which is fine. I mean, that's how that's how the game is going to be designed. That's fine.
Well, I think it would be more fun. Like, all right, so guessing in a sense,
would it be equally fun though?
you understand, like, with probability, people say, oh, it's just a guess, so it's a 50-50.
Yep.
50-50 is two choice.
Yeah.
Right? But I think
Shout outs to H.
in the offense of Street Fighter 5, there's more than two choices on the offense.
Yes.
Which is why the defense gets so much harder, because you have to spread yourself over 6 options.
Yep, and I guess that's natural for any fighting game, not just Street Fighter 5.
Yeah. But imagine if you could place 2 bets over 6 options,
Okay.
so that you have a 33% chance of winning.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Right? Which is almost kind of like what you had in Street Fighter 4, where you could backdash or crouch tech,
Yep.
or you could even jump.
Yeah.
So you have 3 defensive options.
Because I guess one of the advanced
I don't think
techniques
jump
were-
is a good idea.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's a technique where you can jump cancel, which is like a super high level tech,
Yeah,
but
right?
that's one of them. Yeah.
So you had 3 options, and there was like 6 ways to attack.
Yep.
Whether it be like jump, empty load, jump high, jump attack. You could throw. You could walk up, crouch, attack. You could shimmy back. So there's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 options, unique options. And you had 3 opportunities.
Yeah.
You get your
I thought that
chance
was a
down
buzz
to
in
like
the audio,
30%.
but that was Laura's fireball. Sorry. Yeah, see? I thought it was
Triggered.
yeah.
Yeah, but like when you have less and less defensive options or less and less bets to place on the defense, then it makes it harder and harder to become a way successful. And so people have started giving themselves more options by using their life as a wager. So taking the throw.
Okay.
Right? That's I refuse to bet, and this is as much as I'm willing to pay to just fold.
So
It's like poker, right? Where you can just fold your hand, but you
Right.
still pay the ante.
the blind, I
Yeah,
guess.
so
So then, I guess now. Well, this might be a bit next level, but taking the throw, is that part of the option select then?
It's not, because
Okay.
option select is
Because you know,
it's an action that you take, and taking the throw is a non-action because you're not doing anything.
okay. Oh yeah. Oh yes. I do understand that.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree. But if you were to, I mean, in a human emotion where you'd rather take the throw to lose a little bit of life in comparison to you risk the option select, get crush counted, lose a lot of life.
Well, that's the risk.
Wouldn't the taking the throw still be considered as an option?
It is a strategic option, but it's not a active option. It comes down to strategy, because you've elected to not participate in active defense,
Right.
and you could attribute that life loss to how you got into the corner.
That's-
So say you got comboed for 20%,
Yep.
and it put you in the corner, and then you took 2 10% throws. You could just say that corner carry combo that did 20% actually did 40% because you decided to take the next 2 throws. You might as well have just got being hit for 40%, instead of.
Right. I guess
That's why you took those throws, because you ended up in the corner. So you can say that situation caused that effect.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I am not understanding. It's just
I have a different way of looking at it.
no. It's just that probably that's a really good way to rethink my strategies in my future competitive matches. Subtaz, Rasminator into chat. Speaking of not doing anything, which does not count as an active option select, what's that David Serlin game?
Rising Thunder?
No,
it's
the
called
other
something
one.
else. I'm not really even sure.
I forgot the game's name.
Oh, video games. Have a look. We're looking at his Wikipedia on the computer now.
Indie game.
Is it?
What's the name? A Fantasy Strike. There you go.
Fantasy Strike?
Fantasy Strike
I haven't seen it.
is
so I don't know anything
a
about it.
game designed by David Sirlin, the one of the favorite fighting game designers that he has a lot of fans of in the community.
He was a
Fantasy Strike.
Sorry, before you continue, he did do HD remix.
HD remix, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
So Fantasy Strike's throw tech is you doing nothing.
Really?
Yeah. So if the opponent throws, but you didn't press any buttons, you tech and you do damage to them. It's a throw counter, Yomi counter.
That sounds horrible.
But now doing nothing is active option in the game.
I mean, that sums up video games in 2017, where you have to win by default to make your audience happy.
Is that what it is? If your non-decisive
Sounds
action
shit. I mean,
allows you
excuse
advantage?
Excuse my French, but like, why would you punish a player for taking an active option that is countered by non-action?
But that's what I
But
mean.
you
by
could also say the same thing about Tekken blocking, which is neutral. Tekken blocking
is
stick,
neutral, and it's been like
right?
that traditionally. Yes.
And so from a Street Fighter perspective, that's a non-action. That's doing nothing.
So Tekken also does reward you for doing nothing, which is a block.
In a sense.
And I mean, you can hold back, but that's just because that's like, I guess it feels safer. But that's it's not. I'm not saying it's necessary.
You could if you wanted to.
Yeah, but still, it does reward you for blocking. In Fantasy Strike, however, if you know that the opponent is gonna throw, so you're gonna apply the hard read of the opponent throwing me, and I do a non-active option of doing nothing.
Tech, do you have to neutral stick?
Yeah, like nothing.
You have to neutral stick, no buttons.
No buttons. That's a
Which
throw.
means you have to stop guarding.
But then at the same time, it's just not a throw tech. Like, I don't know the term, but
you have to stop guarding.
you know, in judo where they throw you, but you throw back, like the martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that where if you do nothing and they throw you, you damage them back in Fantasy Strike. So now in this game, where the hard read has been countered by a non-active option select and rewarded you, how do you feel about that? You're about to hard read on the opponent. But usually in traditional fighting games, you would do certain actions, including a hold back to block or a button block. But now in Fantasy Strike, if you get that hard read down or a soft read, whatever your decision is, your doing nothing is gonna reward you,
I mean,
and it's gonna.
It's an interesting risk, right? Because you have, if what you're saying is accurate, where you have to neutral stick,
Yep.
you have to forego blocking.
Right there.
Yes.
So,
Let's actually read up on that. Fantasy Strike.
if you have to forego blocking, I feel like that's an action. Well, no, it's more of a choice, right? It's hard to say. In this game, it is an action because you're doing it intentionally.
In Street Fighter?
In Fantasy Strike.
In Fantasy Strike.
In Street Fighter, you would guard and throw anyway.
Yeah, I guess, so I guess it draws a line of you would never intentionally do nothing in Street Fighter 5, right? So that's the difference already. So we're talking two different frequencies right now. But technically, because I guess how creative David Sirlin is, and as well as how much further you want to extend.
Initially, it sounds real bad, but the more that I think about it, the more interesting it really is.
I mean, it is definitely interesting, regardless of good or bad, because it is a added option in top of, like, fighting games have been evolved just from a direction in a button. It has quarter circle motion, half circle motion, charging,
It has all kinds of motions.
back, forward, down, up, diagonals. King of Fighters has some wacky super directions. You wanted to even simplify DPs by down punch on some games. But now there is a method of fighting the opponent by doing nothing.
Well, you're not, because you're kind of like playing chicken with
It won't let me load
with
my page.
disaster, right? Because you have to stop blocking. If you have to stop blocking to throw tech,
I'll double check on that.
you're practically AFK, right?
Yeah, and you get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
It's like farming in mobile games.
So what's the well, you can be rewarded for it, but you can be punished for it. If they just walk up and hit you in the head.
So it is still an active option then.
Yeah, because you're intentionally choosing not to do it.
So
Which
you
means
sacrifice of getting hit by doing nothing, which usually will reward you for throw teching.
Which, if we go back to the Street Fighter 5, what I said about SF5,
Yes.
about not throw teching being a non-option, it actually is an option because you're just low guarding, right?
Right.
So instead of focusing on what you're not doing. You should be focusing on what you are doing, which is crouch guarding or stand guarding.
Nicely done. I like
Yeah?
it. Yeah, I like that. I like your explanation,
So don't worry about
Professor
what you're
Steve
not doing.
FGC.
Yeah, that's me, Professor FGC.
FGC.
Jesus. Apparently, I can't read the chat very well on the
Neutral
stream,
blocking isn't
but-
ideal. Things still beat it. That won't beat back blocking.
Right. So my understanding of Tekken guard is not very good because I'm not a good Tekken player.
But I mean, that's the concept, right? It's still, it's a part of a mechanic.
Yeah.
It'll be in the, I guess, I don't know if it's there, but
I guess the reason why I brought it up is because it is like what we were describing, where you
sure.
essentially do nothing.
So thanks, guys. That was episode 2 of what show is this?
Well, no, it's not what show is this. It's we have a show.
We have a show. We have a show with a question mark.
We have a show.
So that was episode 2 of We Have a Show regarding in-game tutorials for video games or fighting games in this particular.
Yeah, we didn't even go full circle. We just kind of like went on a tangent.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
We talked about some interesting stuff.
That's the concept that I want my kind of show to be.
You just want to talk about stuff?
Yeah, but then at the end, what they do is they'll recast the vote. And see during that argument
If they've changed
if
their
anyone
mind.
have changed their minds.
Yeah,
and then
cool.
see if there's any difference. So that's why having a lot of participants is always ideal.
So, all right, before we actually wrap up for real.
yeah. Well, we're not gonna do it for a while, but
yeah, I mean, but like let's
you've
let's
already given me a
revisit-
YouTube content.
yeah, let's revisit the question and see if we've changed our minds.
So. All right. So question again. Option number 1, or viewers, if you want to participate, that's fine too. So we are discussing
All
about
right, so type 1 or 2 in the chat depending on which one you go for. So
right.
number 1 is
should the basics of fighting games be more definitive in built-in tutorials than it is now? And option number 2 is, does the current game's tutorial offer enough information about the game for players to become competitive players who earn money?
so. What do you think it is?
I think it should still need more.
I think everything always needs more because that's the. If you want to be competitive, you need to know it inside out, and you need to be on the leading edge.
And you gotta discover
You
stuff.
need, you need to be on the leading edge of information. So
Yeah.
you can't be behind the curve.
But I think
So
it's
you'll always
never
need
enough on what the in-game tutorial
It'll never be enough.
provides, and this is specifically for competitive players.
Yeah, and also because the game evolves over time.
Yes,
So
patches.
I think almost everyone would say that it's number 2.
All right. So also branching from that, do you have any stories behind, or stories or opinions about how arcades never had training modes, and we still were able to be good at the games?
Well, I mean.